often use. It's number 419 in the hymnal, if you're interested, attributed to Halidasa. And I asked Mary who Halidasa was, and she doesn't know. And neither do I, but it's always been a very important reading to me. Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the verities and realities of your existence, the bliss of growth, the glory of action, the splendor of beauty. For yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day.
For his annual summer sermon. Uh-oh, he's looking for his notes. Okay, he's got them.
Well, I think what I've learned is probably what most of you learned, so I'll try and be short so I don't bore you too much. Anyway, so what I've learned in 90 years, this is something that Mike and I have pretty much agreed on. You make at least two important choices very early in life. First, you choose the right parents. And second, you choose the right year to be born. For Mike and I, that year mine was 36. I think he snuck into some other year, I think. So why was it valuable to be born in 1936? Well, I was too young for World War II, too young for Korea, too old for Vietnam, too young for computers and calculators, and a little bit wise when rock and roll hit the scene. And I put down number C, which comes a little differently. You will be wise to choose a partner whose mother can dance the hula. Now, I was supposed to have a picture of my mother-in-law dancing the hula, but I'm so inept with the modern days of transferring information that it never got here. Well, and I go down this, I wrote this, and it doesn't always make sense. Anyway, the next section I said, don't let those big dreams get in the way. You know, when I was young, I was full of big dreams. I wanted to live to the year 2000. That was important. And I thought I could be president, and then I found out that I couldn't be president because I was born in Mexico. So I had to go on to other things. Some of those big dreams just walked away. Some persisted, and most, if they were worthwhile, had to be modified. And did any come true? Well, yes, a few did. And what's funny is these were these big dreams that I had, and when they actually came true, I sort of said, so what? I remember working many years in the laboratory to get this piece of equipment to work and to get some data that I thought was important. And one day, I was all alone in the lab, and it was, I think, even a Sunday afternoon or something like that. And suddenly it all worked, and there it was right in front of me, and I couldn't even find anyone to talk to. Anyway, But the most satisfying and amazing dreams were the ones that I didn't know I had, and they did come true. But my life direction was somewhat determined by big dreams or intellectual occurrences, but it was mostly little events. The big events were a couple of epiphanies I had, one in high school when I started studying physics, the other in college when I started studying calculus. And I won't bother you with the details of why these were epiphanies, but they were very important, and I did determine at that point to go on and become a physics teacher and to study it, and I enjoyed it all the time. But that took up some of my time. But there were other little events. There's a fellow, I was working out at China Lake at a naval laboratory out in the middle of the California desert, and there was nothing to do in the evenings. They did have a big community hall, and I'd seen some advertisements for folk dancing. I walked by and was watching what was happening, and a friend of mine from the lab walked by and said, "Come on in, Sam, you'll enjoy it." You know, that doesn't sound like anything very big. Well, I got sort of addicted to folk dancing, and about 6 months later, it was a hombo lesson. You know, someday you'll know what a hombo is. There were 7 couples that were already linked up, one tall, dark-haired girl, young woman, yeah, I should say that. And so we danced together, and it was really fun. And then we met at other folk dances, and we'd walk home together. Actually, we walked down the street, Linnaean Street, where Kirk lived for part of his life in Cambridge. Well, we would walk down, because what else could you do? And it didn't matter, because she was too tall and I was too young. Nothing's going to work. Well, I could go through all the details. We were engaged just a year after that folk dance. So what Jim Waddingham did changed my life completely. And he never even knew it. Anyway, but there are other things. At a friend's meeting in Atlanta, there was a presentation from 2 doctors who had come from Vietnam, and they were talking about the need for prosthetics, and it made an offhand remark about there being many mixed-race children in Vietnam who really had no home because they weren't accepted by the Vietnamese society, and the Americans, who were usually the fathers, didn't care. And so we said, well, we had 3 children, there was space, so why don't we adopt a child? And we did, not from Vietnam, but from Georgia at the time when mixed marriages were still against the law, and then if we adopted one to fill out the family, we really needed to adopt another. And so that little comment led to that big part of our lives. Later on, when we were living in Indiana, our son Paul walked by, or drove, I guess he was riding his bicycle. He saw a sign for a farm, 63 acres, that was for sale, and he came in and said we really had to buy that. Oh, we didn't need a 63-acre farm. So we made a ridiculous offer on it, and it was accepted. And so I still go out to that land. It's called that it wasn't very good for crops. We planted a forest on the 20 acres that were open and had a forest on the other 40 acres, and that is now turned into something called the Neff Woods in Wayne County, Indiana. So just that that little comment from Paul made a big difference. So our life has been, when you figure out that the minutes and hours of my life, it's been more determined by these little things that I never expected would happen. And so I guess that's a little bit of advice to me. Watch out for those little things. Well, the next comment I have is to myself is how time plays tricks on you. And as you get older, the way time works really changes. No matter how old you are, no matter what you know to be true with regard to life and expectancy and things like that, time in the forward direction is always infinite. I make plans that are long-term, and yet I know if I look at the tables, 6 years, I'll be lucky, 6 more years. But I don't, that's never part of my mind. The time that's passed plays tricks on you. The example I had here was that in 1930, a composer named Al Hoffman wrote a song called Heartaches. Maybe some of you know it. It was first recorded in 1933 by Ted Weems and a whistler named Elmore Mo Tanner. 14 years later, in 1947, by that time I was 11 years old, that recording became a big hit. Maybe some of you remember, or no. Maybe you don't. So I remember being in a discussion with a friend of mine, and I said, well, Heartaches was done by Ted Weems in 1933, and it was a big hit when I was pretty young. And he said, oh no, it was done by Patsy Cline. And so for him, it was a modern version, and for me, Patsy Cline sounded pretty modern. So I looked it up and said that she actually recorded it in 1962, which was 54 years ago, and that's the modern version. But the old version is the one that I thought was really old when I was 11 years old, when it was done in 1933, just 14 years before that. That's just, it's an example of the way in which the time in the past seems to get all kaleidoscoped or pulled together in a way that that we see it, but we don't recognize it accurately as we should. And so I guess that's just one more thing. Also, as I get older, life gets much more focused. You know, I did study physics. It's a grand scheme, but it's really big. And I have to say that as I've grown older, physics has walked away from me. Yeah. Math, calculus, that's still pretty good. But life gets focused, and now it's small events that become important. And just like standing here now in front of you behind this microphone. And playing the accordion on Fridays. I never thought I'd play the accordion on Fridays when I was growing up, but it's become an important part of my life, while many of the big dreams I used to have faded. I have a few things to say which have some bit of advice with them, in them. There are points in your life when you get credit when either it is really insignificant or you really don't deserve anything. But my advice is take credit anyway. Because life is short. So I'll give you the examples. I played football with Chris Christopherson. That doesn't have a thing to do with him becoming a great songwriter, but I knew him well. I was at summer camp, and sort of the artist in residence was a young woman from the South who had just was starting out on her career. Her name was Odetta, and later, and so I take credit whenever I see. And I did shake hands with Martin Luther King once, and I'm sure he doesn't remember it, or he never remembered it, and but it happened. But I will give another example, which I think is the better, though it's not as significant maybe. But I was a volleyball coach for a short time. I coached a junior varsity volleyball team, and they were usually had never played volleyball before, and just getting them to get the ball back over the net was usually a triumph. So we had a pretty good varsity team. We played schools like Indiana University, Ohio State University, Ball State, and Bowling Green. They were big schools, and we held our own. So at one final, there was always this championship, this exhibition game at the end of the season, and my coach was, the coach of our varsity team was supposed to be the coach of one of these all-star teams, and he said to me, Sam, I don't want to do that, you do it. What was I supposed to do? Here, I stand out, here's 6 guys, they're all tall, they're all great athletes, and they know a lot more about volleyball than me. And I'm looking over, and this other coach he's got his team, and he's working out plays and all sorts of things. And so I looked at them, and they said, well, what do we do? And I said, first thing I said, can any of you guys set the ball? And 2 guys raised their hand. Okay. And I knew I had this center blocker, and I knew he was good, and I'd say, okay, Beneke's going to be center blocker whenever he can. Okay. And then they said, well, how are we good? What's our strategy? And I said, what I said was set the strong side, which means every play is going to go to the left corner. Well, that center blocker, the guy named Beneke, he was tremendous, and he controlled the game, and that's how we got ahead. The other coach called timeout and did something, and when our team came over, I gave them advice. I said, keep it up. Later, our team was daydreaming a little, so I called timeout, and they came back, and I said, play better. And we won. My team won. But the funny thing I remember was sitting on the bench about 2/3 of the way through the second game, and I knew we were going to win. And I was sitting there watching these guys play beautiful volleyball and saying, I did it. So, I had 2 other things to say. One is that as you go through life, enjoy every moment, because you never know when whatever it is you're doing, you will be doing for the last time. And that has happened in sports, it's happened in other things. You never know when the last time is coming, so enjoy it as much as you can. And in that, well, I do have this that I say, that don't forget that giving is good, and try to put yourself in the other person's shoes. It's something as a selfish little younger brother, I've never been very good at. But I've always been good whenever I do it. And I think that's one of the true, that's the basic point of a good life. And in terms of the idea that you never know when something's going to happen for the last time, I'm going to reread, to finish my talk, reread Halidasa's statement. Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the verities and realities of your existence, the bliss of growth, the splendor of beauty. For yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day.